My name is Brielle, and this is the story of how my sister stole my entire wedding and thought she got away with it. It was a Tuesday morning when I found the note on my kitchen counter. 7 words in clean printed font. Wedding's off, expect a call from my lawyer. No signature, no explanation. Just my sister, Madison's name typed at the bottom like a business transaction. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood there holding that piece of paper, feeling like I'd slipped out of time. 2 days before, what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. And this is how I found out it wasn't happening. I'd driven over to finalize the seating chart with Mom, carrying a box of wedding favors and my final guest count. The house was eerily quiet when I let myself in through the side door. No coffee brewing, no morning news playing, just an unsettling stillness that made my skin crawl. The note was centered perfectly on the marble kitchen island where Mom usually left her grocery lists and reminders, but this wasn't handwritten in her cheerful cursive. This was cold, calculated, and final. The strangest part? I wasn't even surprised. Madison had been acting weird for weeks, asking detailed questions about my vendors, my timeline, even my playlist. She'd offered to help coordinate so many times I'd started getting suspicious. I thought she was just being overly supportive. I was wrong. I tucked the note into my purse, left the wedding favors on the counter, and drove home in complete silence. No music, no phone calls, no tears. Just the sound of my own breathing and the growing certainty that this was only the beginning. Within hours, I discovered the truth. Madison hadn't just canceled my wedding, she had taken it. Every single detail I'd spent 18 months planning and saving for was still happening on Saturday. The venue, the flowers, the photographer, the string quartet, even the custom 3-tier cake with lavender buttercream that had taken me 4 tastings to perfect. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned, just not for me. She was marrying my ex-fiancé Ryan in the exact ceremony I'd designed. I found out through Instagram, of course. The first photo appeared around 3 p.m., Madison in a white sundress, holding Ryan's hand outside Willow Creek Gardens, my venue. The caption read, "Scouting locations for our big day," with a heart emoji. But I knew she wasn't scouting anything. She was confirming final details for Saturday. The next post hit me like a physical blow. Madison twirling in my custom gown. The ivory silk Maggie Sottero dress I'd worked double shifts at the hospital to afford. The one I'd had altered 3 times to fit perfectly. The one hanging in my closet with the tags still on, waiting for Saturday morning. Except, now it was in my sister's Instagram story, with the caption, "Dreams do come true, Thompson wedding," and a close-up of her hand wearing my grandmother's engagement ring. The comments were worse than the photos themselves. Friends and family gushing about how beautiful she looked, how perfect everything was, how they couldn't wait for the big day. My own Aunt Jessica commented, "So elegant, sweetheart, you deserve this happiness after everything you've been through." My college roommate Sarah wrote, "Madison, you're going to be the most beautiful bride. That dress is absolutely stunning." They had no idea they were celebrating a theft. For 48 hours, I stayed silent. Not because I was weak, not because I was in shock, but because I was thinking. While Madison was posting engagement photos and thanking vendors for their amazing work, I was quietly gathering evidence. You see, Madison had made one crucial mistake. She'd used my nonprofit's credit card for the initial deposits, claiming she was handling logistics while I was traveling for work conferences. What she didn't know was that I kept meticulous records of every transaction, every email, every signed contract. I opened my laptop and started digging. Email threads with vendors dating back 14 months, signed contracts with my name and signature, payment confirmations from my personal and business account. Every piece of my dream wedding had been systematically transferred to her name over the past 6 weeks. The florist emails were particularly damning. Madison had contacted Rose Petal Designs claiming there was a family emergency and that she needed to step in to handle the arrangements. She'd used official letterhead from Thompson Associates, our family's accounting firm where she worked, to make it look legitimate. But here's where it gets really interesting. Madison didn't just work at our family's accounting firm. She was the primary accountant for the Thompson Family Trust. the inheritance fund our grandfather had left to support his children and grandchildren through major life events. The same trust fund that had mysteriously been depleted by 85-0 over the past 6 months. The exact amount I'd budgeted for my wedding, plus the 10-0 emergency fund Madison had insisted I keep for last-minute expenses. I pulled up the trust statements online. Transaction after transaction showed withdrawals authorized by B. Thompson, my signature, but not my handwriting. The dates matched perfectly with my wedding payment schedule, but the money had gone to accounts I'd never opened. My hands were shaking as I called my lawyer, Jennifer Morrison, a family friend who'd helped me set up my nonprofit 3 years ago. When I showed her the evidence, her expression changed from confusion to fury to something resembling awe. "Brielle," she said slowly, scrolling through the documents I'd printed. "This isn't just wedding theft, this is embezzlement, wire fraud, identity theft, and forgery. Madison has been systematically stealing from your trust fund for months, using your wedding as cover." She leaned back in her leather chair, shaking her head. The level of planning this required. She's been orchestrating this for almost a year. "What do I do?" I asked, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. "We call the FBI, Financial Crimes Division. This crosses state lines. Your trust is managed in Delaware, the venue is in Virginia, and the accounts she opened are in Maryland. That makes it federal." The wedding was on Saturday. It was Thursday when I filed the police report. Friday morning, my phone rang at 6 a.m. Madison's name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail, but she called again immediately. And again. On the 4th call, I answered. "Brielle, thank God." Her voice was shaky, desperate, completely different from her usual confident tone. "Please, we need to talk. There's been a misunderstanding." "About what?" I asked calmly, sitting up in bed. "About the wedding, about the money, about everything. I can explain it all. It's not what it looks like." "Really? Because it looks like you stole my wedding, forged my signature on trust fund documents, and committed multiple felonies. What part am I misunderstanding?" The silence on the other end stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. I was trying to help," she finally whispered. "You were so stressed, so overwhelmed. Ryan came to me after your fight last month. Said he was having second thoughts. Said maybe you two weren't right for each other." I thought I was saving you from making a mistake. By stealing my wedding and marrying him yourself? It wasn't supposed to happen like this. It just evolved. And the trust fund money was technically family money anyway. I figured. "You figured wrong. Explain it to the detective tomorrow." The silence that followed was deafening. Then, quietly, "Detective? Agent Morrison from the FBI will be at your wedding tomorrow, with a warrant. I hope your guests enjoy the show." I hung up and turned off my phone. Saturday arrived gray and drizzly, which felt appropriate. I didn't go to the venue, but my lawyer did, along with Agent Morrison, 2 other federal agents, and a court order freezing all assets related to the Thompson family trust. According to Jennifer's text updates, Madison had to explain to 150 guests why the bride was being arrested at her own wedding altar. The photos from that day never made it to Instagram. Ryan, my ex-fiancé, claimed he had no idea about the financial fraud. Maybe that was true, maybe it wasn't. What I did know was that he'd been planning to leave me for my sister for months, and they'd both decided the easiest way to handle it was to let me plan and pay for their wedding while they slowly erased me from my own life. The betrayal should have destroyed me. Instead, it clarified everything. The aftermath was swift and thorough. Madison was charged with embezzlement, wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. The family trust was placed under federal supervision. Our parents, who had apparently known about the relationship between Madison and Ryan but chose to stay silent, suddenly found themselves under investigation for their role in the financial irregularities. During the discovery process, we learned that Madison had been intercepting my mail for months, rerouting vendor confirmations to her own email, and even calling suppliers to update contact information. She'd created an entire parallel planning process, shadowing my every decision while systematically locking me out of my own wedding. The most chilling detail came from the caterer. Madison had told him that I'd suffered a mental breakdown and was too unstable to handle wedding planning anymore. She'd shown him forged medical documents suggesting I was under psychiatric care and that she had power of attorney to make decisions on my behalf. But here's the part that surprised everyone. I didn't want revenge. I wanted justice. I testified at Madison's hearing 8 months later. The federal courthouse was packed with family members who'd supported her theft, thinking I was just being dramatic or jealous. When I walked to the witness stand, some of them couldn't even look at me. My testimony was simple and factual. I laid out the timeline, the financial evidence, the forged documents. I spoke about the systematic erosion of my identity, the way they'd made me question my own sanity by gaslighting me about vendor communications and payment schedules. When the prosecutor asked how the crime had affected me, I said, "The defendant didn't just steal my wedding, she stole my sense of reality. She made me doubt my own memory, my own judgment, my own worth." That kind of psychological manipulation takes longer to heal than financial loss. When the judge read the verdict, guilty on all counts, the silence in the courtroom was profound. You could hear the air conditioning humming, papers rustling, someone in the gallery quietly crying. Madison received 3 years in federal prison and was ordered to pay full restitution plus damages totaling $180,000. The judge called it one of the most calculated and cruel cases of family financial abuse he'd seen in 20 years on the bench. I used the settlement money to expand my nonprofit, Women's Financial Recovery Network, focusing on helping women who'd been financially abused by family members. Because as I learned through my research and therapy, what happened to me wasn't rare. It was just rarely prosecuted. Most women in my situation stay quiet, either out of shame or fear of destroying family relationships. They absorb the loss, blame themselves, and move on. I refuse to do that. The organization is called Reclaim, and our motto is simple. Your voice matters, your story matters, your signature matters. We've helped 43 women in the past 2 years recover more than $2 million in stolen assets. We provide legal resources, financial counseling, and emotional support for women who've been systematically erased from their own lives. 6 months after the trial, I received a letter from Madison in federal prison. 3 pages of self-pity and blame-shifting, alternating between claiming she was trying to protect me and insisting that I'd overreacted to what she called a family misunderstanding. The letter ended with, "I hope you're happy now that you've destroyed our family and sent your own sister to prison over money and a man who never really loved you anyway." I wasn't happy. I was something better. I was free. I never did have that dream wedding. Instead, I eloped with someone who understood that love isn't about stealing someone else's dreams, it's about building your own together. His name is Marcus, and he proposed to me on the courthouse steps after Madison's sentencing. Not because the timing was romantic, but because he wanted me to know that my strength in seeking justice was what made him fall in love with me. We had a small ceremony at the beach, just us and 2 witnesses. No stolen flowers, no forged signatures, no family drama. Just truth, love, and the knowledge that some silences are worth breaking. These days, when people ask me about forgiveness, I tell them this. I didn't need to forgive Madison to move on. I needed to make sure she couldn't do this to anyone else. And to any woman reading this who's been told she's overreacting to financial abuse, who's been gaslit by family members, who's been made to feel crazy for trusting her instincts. You're not crazy. Document everything. Trust your gut. Save your evidence. And remember, silence isn't always golden. Sometimes it's just gathering proof. Madison gets out of prison next year. I'm not afraid of that anymore, because while she was learning how to survive behind bars, I was learning how to thrive without the people who tried to erase me. And that, I think, is the best revenge of all.